I got a call from a doctor one day who also my uncle, and he says to me, I don't know if you've noticed what's going on in New York, where COVID is hitting the worst, but hospitals don't have enough room to treat patients. They're caring for people in the hallways and parking lots. Now they're throwing up tents in parks, but ultimately they're turning away people that need either treatment, quarantine, observation, and they're just sending them home, and people have been dying because of it. And we think that I think that you may have the solution to that. And I sort of chuckled. I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, we have these. You have these, Japanese sleeping pod things." And I sort of laughed because I said, I love our pods to death. I've designed, prototype, built, manufactured 5 generations of the pods, but in fairness, there's a ladder. They require dexterity to get into. They're for 22-year-olds, not the elderly, the obese, the sick, the weak. And so I sort of laughed it off. Woke up the next day in the middle of the night, just my inventor cap on, and started scratching out some stuff on napkins, and ultimately just completely redid our pod design for medical use.
Hello everybody, Christine here with another episode of the Co-Living Code Show. We have another special episode that we rushed in production. This was actually recorded yesterday, April 21st. Really cool. We brought Jeremiah Adler back on the show. He founded Upstart Creative in Los Angeles back in 2016. We had him on the show back in November 2018, so it's been about a year and a half. He's actually a dear friend of mine, and what he has done to help with this COVID-19 issue will blow your mind. I know you guys just saw the video, so that's actually something he's put together within 3.5 weeks flat. He's talked with government, he's talked with the mayor, the governor of California. They're right around the corner from getting FDA approval, so we'll talk about that on the show. And we also dive into how Upstart Creative is handling this whole pandemic. They have 400 residents, so we went really deep in on that. It's really great for all the operators around the world to kind of hear, the struggles and the challenges and how we addressed those quickly, during this very unique time in our world. So real quick, I'll read his bio for those that don't know him. He, again, founded Upstart Creative 2016 to empower young people to pursue their dreams and invest their time and money in themselves rather than their rent. Upstart creates hyper-affordable pod-based co-living communities where people live, work, play, and collaborate together, all for just $750 per month, half the price of a studio apartment. With 8 locations in Los Angeles, they're scaling the organization in order to empower young adults to move to any city in the world with just $1,000 in their pocket. And now he is the recent founder and CEO of Agile Medical Systems, a medical pod device company that can 3x the per square foot treatment capacity of any space. This is hospitals, this could be football fields, everywhere right now. They're trying to make space. And it also helps protect caregivers from contagious diseases. Enjoy this special episode of the Co-Living Code Show with Jeremiah Adler. Okay, so here we are, everybody, with Jeremiah Adler. He is the CEO and founder of Upstart Creative. based out of Los Angeles, California. We had him on the show back in November 2018, so a year and a half ago. We're actually really good friends too. So can you believe it's been that long, Jeremiah, since you came on the show?
Oh, it's crazy. So much has happened in co-living since then.
Yes.
So much has happened with Kindred, with Upstart, and now we're in the middle of a pandemic. So this is fun.
Yes, and that's why we're rushing this episode, you guys. We're filming on April 21st. It's going to air on April 22nd, the very next day. This is how, and we're going to go deep into it. This is how you can successfully pivot from co-living to COVID-19. Jeremiah is a true entrepreneur. You know, he's a problem solver, and that's why we just showed that video of what you did in like a month. Because I remember you texted me March 26th about this idea, and I was just blown away how fast you guys have moved. So go ahead and take it away. Tell us what you guys are up to. Well, actually, catch us up on Upstart, on your current growth, how many beds you have. I know you guys grew so fast.
Yeah, so Upstart, our mission is to empower young people to invest their time and money in themselves rather than their rents. And we do that by building these hyper affordable pod-based co-living communities. And ultimately, our vision that we were heavily focused on was empowering young people to move to any city in the world with only $1,000 in their pocket. So practically, what does that look like? In Los Angeles, we have 8 locations, about 400 beds, and it's sort of a cross between summer camp and a college dorm. A bunch of 18 to 25-year-olds, if you're young, broke, moving to a city to start your career, and it's expensive. You move in with Upstart, $750 a month, and then you sleep in this sort of modified Japanese sleeping pod that we've customized for sort of midterm stays. 6 months is about the average stay we have. And so, it's a place you're immediately surrounded by your best friends. Everyone's pursuing the same career because we're in Los Angeles. We're focusing on performing arts, but intend on expanding other verticals, entrepreneurship, nonprofit work. And then we provide amenities and programming that empower your success: recording studios, photo studios, stages, theaters, free acting, dance, music classes, trips to Big Bear Lake, California. We usually go sailing in the summer. So a fun, we like to say, instead of just providing a place to live, we provide a life. What you're doing on Saturday night, people you're dating, your best friends, and everything like that. And so, Upstart has, consistently and steadily been growing in Los Angeles. And then, we were, just getting ready to, raise money and go to other cities and involved in that whole process. And then, bam, there's, the stay-at-home orders, the entire city shuts down. And, it's Upstart's fine. But it's scary for a lot of operators, and there's a lot of unique challenges from every single direction. One is, how do you social distance in co-living facility, especially a pod-based co-living facility? And the answer is you create new policies and procedures. We have everyone set their alarms, every 2 hours on the even hour between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. and wash their hands and sterilize everything. But it's sort of a unique position as a co-living operator because traditionally we just have such an intimate relationship with our members. Our employees are living in our store with our customers, essentially. So there's just so many touch points, and rightfully so. Everybody is freaked out right now, and within the context of Upstart, we were there's nothing you can really do right now other than just sort of wait out what's going on. And it's a challenge for sure when call it 99.999% of your members have lost their jobs, and when we're already at a low price point, they just don't have, disposable income, and the disposable income they need to be spending on, food and medicine, sometimes everything like that. And so, I just personally was sort of confronted with this, frustrated feeling of, we're going to raise a bunch of money, a Series A, to start to go to other cities and everything like that. And we're still doing that, and optimistic we'll be able to close, but the timeline of that, of everything, in that financial world has been significantly extended. And, so I got a call from a doctor one day who, also my uncle, and he says to me, I don't know if you've noticed what's going on in, New York, where, COVID is hitting the worst, but hospitals don't have enough room to treat patients. They're, caring for people in the hallways and parking lots. Now they're throwing up tents in parks, but ultimately they're turning away people that need either treatment, quarantine, observation, and they're just sending them home, and people have been dying because of it. And we think that I think that you may have the solution to that. And I sort of chuckled. I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, we have these you have these Japanese sleeping pod things." And I sort of laughed because I said, I love our pods to death. I've designed, prototype, built, manufactured 5 generations of the pods. But in fairness, there's a ladder. They require dexterity to get into. They're for 22-year-olds, not the elderly, the obese, the sick, the weak. And so I sort of laughed it off. Woke up the next day in the middle of the night, just my inventor cap on, and started scratching out some stuff on napkins, and ultimately just completely redid our pod design for medical use with a retracting bed. And so now you have near 360-degree patient access. And over the course of a week, we refined this design further and further, and then realized that the true value of this wasn't even really in the vertical component, but ultimately your ability to isolate individual COVID patients. And so what we have today, we just finished our second prototype and are scaling up to be able to produce up to 10,000 units per week. It's a negative pressure pod. And what negative pressure does, basically, it creates a negative 2.5 Pascal pressure difference between the inside and the outside of the pod. So that means there's a one-directional airflow from the outside to the inside. And so if you are in a stadium or a convention center and you have thousands of cots currently on the ground is what's happening, well, you have thousands of people that are sick, that are all cross-contaminating each other with their sickness. But even worse, medical providers are getting sick like crazy. And you can have thousands of people in the same field hospital that's all sharing the same filthy, contaminated air. And so what this does is it literally gives every single patient their own separate pressure system. And so now all of the air outside of these pods is fresh, clean air, safe for your caregivers, your medical providers, and everybody inside the pod. Their air is filtered out through, they're called ULPA filters, which are filtered down to 0.1 microns. That's 3 times smaller than a HEPA filter. The COVID-19 virus is 0.125 microns. And so these are, essentially 99.9995 effective at COVID. And so, incredibly quickly, they've never done anything faster in my life. I think I think we're all of 3.5 weeks into this process, but we've designed, patented, now done 2 prototypes, and we're about to get our FDA emergency use authorization for it. And we've actually created two models. One is the medical unit, which is for hospitals, prisons, field hospitals, any place where it makes sense to, isolate your sick and filter their air so they don't infect the healthy. And then we've also created a non-medical, what's actually a positive pressure unit, that's primarily for homeless shelters. Right now, every single recreation center in all of Los Angeles is literally been converted to a homeless center. For the first time because of COVID, the city's actually really doing something about it. And so, but they're having problems with buy-in from the homeless. I think sort of service resistant is the term. But if you actually see the facilities, you understand what they're providing is, an army cot 6 inches off the ground and a dumpster, a literal dumpster that they can store their things in. So anything that fits in the dumpster is allowed. There's been, breakout after breakout, headline after headline of COVID breaking out in these because, again, you have high density. And so ultimately what you want to do with a healthy population is not have negative pressure, but positive pressure. And so in the homeless pods, we pump in, positive HEPA filtered air. And so that means if there's 300 other homeless people there, while you're sleeping in your pod, your air is clean and filtered. And so, it's been incredibly fast. In 3.5 weeks, we've launched a new company, we've raised money, we've, brought on partners, EKA, the lobbying firm is, bringing this to every government organization from the state to the county to FEMA. And, we think we have the opportunity to save a lot of lives here.
That is awesome. I love that. So the FDA clearance, do you know how quickly these can go into usage?
Yeah. So the sort of the miraculous thing about where we are, in history right now is like red tape is gone essentially. And so, a process that would normally take months and months or years, it is literally taking a matter of days. It was about 4 days ago we, initially submitted our application, and there have been multiple volleys, and we expect by the end of the week it'll be FDA approved. We're confident enough that we're taking orders for it already, and getting ready to go into production.
And then are the orders originating in Los Angeles, out of curiosity?
Yeah, we can't announce orders, just weird government contract stuff. But between homeless and medical, that's the big thing. Portland and Seattle is big for homeless as well. It's it's terrible what's going on with the pandemic, except for the first time, like the city's actually addressing homelessness in a real way. That's not 3.5 years from now, we're going to have an $800,000 condo for 120 of the 60,000 homeless people here. Like they're actually addressing it in a very real way, and being progressive. And so yeah, it's really exciting. And it's a unique challenge for us in terms of manufacturing. When we as co-living operators, you say, okay, what is our core competency? Are we community builders? But even if community building is your core competency, you as someone who's run a co-living facility, just by necessity, you pick up all these skills along the way. The first time we built pods, I got 11 sheets of plywood from Home Depot and a nail gun, and just sketched it out, and that was the first prototype. And then demolished the thing, and we built the next prototype. And then a year later, we were in a factory in Shanghai, and now we've moved production back to the U.S. for obvious reasons, and figuring out, okay, what's medical grade, high density, polyethylene, that it can be easily clean, that's anti, bacterial, and and everything like that. So it's been very unique going from co-living to medical device company in 3.5 weeks.
No, that's awesome. And I remember, I called you first before I called anybody, I think it was the beginning of March, because I knew how many residents you had. I mean, on one property alone, you guys have like 100 residents. So the density, that was my biggest worry for co-living, was to hear if people started getting sick and everybody got sick. And yeah, you were like, no, like that's not the case. And everybody I've talked to thus far, that hasn't happened. Thank God. So that was my biggest worry when it came to co-living. And then you were even super proactive, and you're like, look, Christine, we emptied one location out, moved everybody, so that in case, God forbid, people got sick, you'd have somewhere to put them, right? So you were super proactive in that sense, which is great. I mean, kudos to you, especially having that many residents and that much going on so fast.
Oh yeah, so we have 8 locations, and I mean, it's terrifying on so many levels if this breaks out, because again, talk about our core competencies as co-living operators. Public health official is absolutely not one of them. Yet every single co-living country in America, in the world, is suddenly thrown into this position of making policies and whatnot. And it's easy for WeWork to make policies about the pandemic, because what do all they have to do is follow the CDC guidelines. Basically, there have been continual CDC guidelines, but what us as co-living operators faced was every 3 days the CDC would send out new guidelines, and they say, well, it's technically impossible to conform to some of these. And because co-living is so new, it took a good while for just even the press to catch up. And what are co-living operators doing? So everyone, luckily, it's a close-knit community. People can, people were very generous, sharing. Talk to to Ben at Haven. Every day, they're facing very similar challenges. And again, they're twofold. How do you protect your community, and then how do you protect your community during a time when everyone's lost their job, and hopefully making payment plans, but as operators, for temporarily, we're not going to have the resources. And so what we did, planning for the worst, which luckily hasn't come yet. We haven't had any cases, but we consolidated, we emptied one of our locations and, just designated it as a rest, recovery, and quarantine location, which was good, for sure. Of course, I'm still nervous that it's going to break out. I love upstarters to death, but if I'm being honest, some of the habits of our 22-year-olds, they like to share vape pens and cigarettes and stuff like that. So we encourage very actively people to practice social distancing, but I guess sort of the biggest unique challenge that we faced is how do we what responsibility do we have to our members in terms of helping them find work. Before, we have activities directors, and it's lots of fun to plan parties and adult proms and the Upstart Awards and everything like that. In the age of social distancing, that all of that goes away. And so ultimately, it's about providing resources to people to try to get them to work. And it's no one knows how long this is going to go on. And it's interesting, just because I sort of view this through the frame of fundraising, just because that's where we were right before. And we just sort of calculated the total Upstart addressable market in the United States is 3 million people. And we got to that number by saying, our customers are 18 to 35-year-olds living in the biggest 25 cities, making under $54,000 per year in single-person households. So no kids, no unmarried with no kids. And the shorthand of that is, who are our customers? Well, young people in expensive cities in the beginning or transitional stages of their careers. And it was my case to venture capitalists to argue that 3 million was fair, and we can get 1% of that addressable market. But now when I think about young people in the beginning or transitional phases of their career and the addressable market of co-living, I'm like, wait a second, that an entire generation of people is going to be in a transitional period in their career now. In a post-pandemic world, forget about the uncomfortableness of today, but a post-pandemic world, co-living is going to be so important and so relevant to so many people. And just to address the financial issues that everyone's going to face, because, okay, great, people don't have to pay rent right now in many states. In California, Garcetti has said you don't have to pay your rent. You can't be evicted. You're going to have 12 months to pay it back to your landlord. Young people aren't going to be young people aren't going to be able to pay back that past rents in 12 months. They've all lost their jobs. And so there's going to be massive exodus of young people who've lost their jobs, who've lost their homes, who are starting over, trying to, pursue something new. And, whether that makes the addressable market 6 million or 10 million or 50 million, for pod-based co-living, I don't want to say that 3 million is the total addressable market for all co-living. I think it's much bigger, but for our sort of niche in co-living, that's how we address it. And so, there's a very powerful, compelling case that there's just going to be a huge need for co-living coming up here. And sort of the big question mark is, the social distancing component is, what do people's habits look like in a post-pandemic world? And I hope they go back to normal, but there's some evidence when you look at the Spanish flu, firsthand accounts, people said, oh, it took a couple years for people to start shaking hands again and to come out. I hope it happens quicker. At the same time, in the post Spanish flu world, people were forced to come out because they didn't have Zoom. Now I don't know if anyone's ever going back to the office. So hopefully your co-working or co-living space has co-working built in.
No, and I think that's been a big takeaway right now too for co-living is not only, under these circumstances now, you need community. Otherwise, if you're living alone, like you're not around humans, right? So you've got the built-in community, you've got, the co-working space typically. So I think the way living is seen and actually happens in the future is probably going to shift also, where it's like, what if I got stuck in my home, for weeks and months at a time? Is it a comfortable living environment? Do I enjoy it? Actually, that was a question. A couple of questions. I know you master lease all your properties, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So your landlords are obviously can't evict you guys either, and are gonna, you guys will have, like, everybody's gonna have to catch up the rent eventually. I think you're right. The younger ones are gonna have a hard time paying normal rent and paying a portion of back rent.
Yeah. So look, when we talk about unique challenges that we face as an operator, and I hate that word right now, operator, but yes, realistically, Upstart is a co-living operator. Like that is a huge challenge, which we have lease obligations. No, technically we can't be evicted by our landlords, but we rely on our growth relies on having good relationships with our landlords. Every landlord we have owns multiple properties, and although everyone understands what's going on, everyone is being flexible, there's a very unique challenge, which, we are, for all intents and purposes, never going to go after our members, for back rent. I mean, they just don't have it, just as a personal, principle and philosophy. Like we don't do collections. It's, our entire mission is about empowering people's careers, and one derogatory mark on your credit can, seriously affect you in the future. Like literally the only reason I was able to start Upstart, I asked everyone with more than $1,000 in their bank account to invest in my crazy idea. Everybody said no. The only reason I was able to start it was because they had good credit and could max out $60,000 in credit cards. And so, yes, our members are accumulating past rent. Do we expect them to get on payment plans and make it up? Yes, but we're not suing anyone over it. And so, that's the challenging thing. And we hope and we're optimistic our landlords will, be flexible on the other side of this. And who knows what new government rules they're going to be and everything like that. But it's the I think the really unique thing about this moment in history is that there's just this universal pain that everyone's feeling, for no matter what your socioeconomic status is, from the minimum wage worker to literally the airline CEO. And people say, oh, screw the airline CEOs, but the airline CEOs are really nervous because they're set to run out of money in the next couple months, and if they don't get their bailout, everyone is universally feeling some sort of pain. And we've been flexible with our members, our landlords have been flexible with us. Hopefully the banks have been flexible with them. But yeah, we're optimistic about what this looks like on the other side. But of course, there's big challenges.
Yeah.
What if we owe our landlords $500,000, and technically our members owe us that money, but we have no ability to collect? There's very real challenges for the industry right now.
And for your members, did you guys open, like, are your common areas still open for usage, like the recording studio and all this stuff? Did you guys leave the amenities open?
Yeah, so I look, like, that has been if I'm just being like honest and transparent, like this has been the hardest, most challenging thing about the pandemic is making these policies. And I can honestly say, it's not a very fun time to be the decision maker at Upstart, because everyone's scared, everyone's frustrated, everyone's broke, and every decision you make, is impacting people's lives. You hope it's the right decision, but this isn't throwing a yacht party or the Upstart Awards. That's when it's lots of fun. And we've our weekly, daily, the policies have been evolving. And what do you do when your many of your members, the only reason why they moved in is because you have recording studios. You have the tools for them to pursue their careers, but then you have another constituency that is freaking out and demanding that you close all of those, or because we have a network of 8 locations. One location will have a dance studio, another one a recording studio, another one a theater. And so there's this movement between everything. And when we shut down that movement, there was a huge backlash. People are feeling cooped up. People I sort of sent a message out encouraging people to, I think I said, make the best start of your life. Take advantage of this time right now. We can either come out on the other side of this pandemic, depressed, fat alcoholics that have blown through all our money, or we can hopefully do some push-ups, create some art, take advantage of this time that we have right now. And then, a week later, we have to make the decision. Actually, you can't go to the recording studio or the other place because, we need to cater to another constituency. And so other people are furious. And so, it's been evolving. You know, our on-site community managers, which that's honestly one thing that I haven't really heard as part of this bigger conversation about co-living during the pandemic. I've heard a lot about operators and leases and the economics and social distancing, but actually your community facilitators, the boots on the ground, like these are the people that have like really been thrown into impossible positions because they are your employee living in your store with your customer. They are the ones that are the immediate yes, we get the angry emails, but they're the ones that are physically there 24/7 on the receiving end of all the fear, anxiety, everything like that. And suddenly they're often 23, 24 years old, doing this in kind for free rent, and now they are expected to be in this incredible role of leadership of a panicked community. But for the most part, we've been overwhelmingly blown away by just the initiative that they've shown. And I don't envy that position at all right now. But what do you see or hear about community facilitators in general right now, being in the sort of thrown in this public health decision making position all of a sudden?
So yeah, I know what's funny is, some of the larger properties with bigger amenities, facilities, some of the residents are asking for credit on rent. This is
Mhm.
also not just co-living, this is multifamily communities
Mhm.
are actually, which that surprises me. But yeah, some of the larger properties are shutting everything down, and they're not giving a credit on rent. And some are leaving them open. So you guys are leaving them open. I know you guys went back and forth. Are they open now?
You're talking about amenities?
Yeah, the facilities like your gym, your recording
Yeah.
studio. Yeah.
So we've just altered the policy that you basically can't go to the other
Okay.
facilities off-site, but if you have a recording studio there, you can still use it. And I mean, every one of our facilities has some sort of creative amenity in it. So it continues. You know, it's ultimately, again, like we have to balance these decisions between what is best for public health. And well, what is best for public health if we demand everyone wears a hazmat suit and doesn't get out of their pod. I mean, that's what is best for public health. um, but ultimately, it's people have to be able to live. People are going stir crazy for sure. But again, I am, I've never been more jealous of upstarters because despite the scariness and everything, uh, you don't go stir crazy to the same degree when you have a bunch of other young people. And we're putting on film contests now, and each house is making a different 10-minute film in a competition because people have time, and all sorts of new ideas and collaboration and everything like that is coming out of this. So
And no, in my home, there's 6 of us, and we're calling it summer camp. So we love it. We are sad after the fact. Hopefully, I think a lot of these things we could continue on. It's like movie night on Friday nights. It's we got one of the housemates got a puppy. which that was actually been discussed for like 6 months amongst our house. He owns a dog toy company. So he's the perfect person to have a dog. So we got a Great Dane puppy. So we have a puppy running around now. Yeah, ordering ice cream, like just, yeah, we're living it up right now. We're making the best of it and everybody's in good spirits. So
Yeah.
I think you're right. You know, again, I would just hate to be alone, like living alone. I would go absolutely crazy. We're all working from home and we work in different corners of the house. So we could be on video calls, we could be on phone calls.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're right about that. And another point, you know, and I don't know if I've mentioned this on another episode yet, but I know we've been doing, you know, we've been doing these video chats with like 40 operators from around the world, sharing tips and tricks and strategies. It's been really cool. And, you know, what I'm saying is this pandemic is what investors in the future and real estate developers are going to look back on and see how the co-living industry handled it. Right. And that's why it's so imperative that we are handling it as best as we can, which we are. I think co-living had the advantage, and I've said this before too, because it's so systematized already, and you guys especially also, there were so many systems in place already. It was easier to add that additional layer really quickly. I think the quickest, even over multifamily. You know, I think everybody else was like scrambling, but co-living was like, oh, let's just add this extra layer. So that's been nice too. But you're right, the CDC was changing rules constantly. Oh, that's my next question, Jeremiah. Are you allowing outside residents, guests at all to visit your current residence, and are the current residents allowed to go out?
So that was one of the first things we did. We stopped allowing outside guests. You know, the we have no authority to forbid our members from leaving.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I mean, this was, you know, sort of one of the unique. It was like, well, you know, the governor has said stay at home. The governor has more authority than your landlord. I mean, we're not landlords, we're membership, but you get my sentiment. But you know, it is. Before the pandemic, it was hard to wrangle a bunch of 18 to 25-year-olds, you know, with a smaller staff during the pandemic. You know, it's even harder, and you know, so you know, you know, people are going out to the store, people are doing their things, and you know, ultimately, you know what we have, because you know, like we've had to make hard decisions. It's you know, because one, you know, we're not kicking people out for, you know, in any money things during, you know, the pandemic. Yeah, if it's, you know, behavioral or you're a threat to the community, we'll still do that. But you know, because you know, we have, you know, members, you know, a large number of members that, you know, can't pay and, you know, are still living there, and you know, we need to support them. You know, operationally, we've made, you know, really hard decisions. You know, we had to, you know, cut back, you know, our cleaning staff, for example. But you know, sort of out of these challenges, really, you know, sort of unique discoveries happen, which is, well, if we have this excess capacity, you know, we can just hire, you know, people who can't pay to clean the properties, especially because they need more cleaning. And you know, at first, frankly, I was like, oh, you know, this is going to be an absolute disaster. You know, I'm 33 years old and I'm terrible at cleaning. I was even more terrible at cleaning when I was 23 years old. But the feedback is actually great. That it, you know, it's more, you know, it's a bottom up approach to maintaining the facilities in the community. But because you're living with these people, there's just an added level of accountability. You know, before, because there were outside cleaners, people were, you know, dirty, they wouldn't clean up after themselves in the kitchen, and there was just this feeling of, oh, you know, this is part of my rent, I'm paying for it, you know, I don't need to have any personal accountability. But when you're best friends with the person who's cleaning up after you, oh wow, like all of a sudden your own habits start to change. And so that's been, you know, the light that's come out of this is, you know, just it's sort of, you know, bottom up, you know, communal approach, which, you know, even if some members are frustrated with our, decisions that we're, being too aggressive with coronavirus rules or not aggressive enough. And that is the frustrating dichotomy. There's absolutely zero people in Upstart that think we're doing a great job of responding to coronavirus. There's people that think we are, the second coming of Hitler because, we've eliminated their ability to, go to a recording studio across town. And, there's the other people that, think that we're equally evil because, we decided to allow a new move in. And, there's the perception that that's putting the entire community at risk. And so, in a world where every challenge, and every decision is faced with, criticism and fear and backlash, the idea that actually, like within the communities, it's just thriving. People are sticking together. People are sharing their resources, their fears, their food. It's like the good vibes of community are stronger than they've ever been. Even if the challenges are greater than they ever been.
So that's been a common theme. That's so funny you say that it's split. You've got your people that, oh my gosh, we need to be super strict about, the 6-foot rule and all this stuff. Maybe more of the people, especially people that are germophobic. So they're kind of freaking out. And then the ones that are a little more carefree are like, no, it's fine, And so that is actually, I've heard that almost through every community. It's usually split. It's usually split. They're not, and that's funny. And it's people that get along so great normally, like there's never any issues, but there's that dichotomy right now of the people that, you're either one side or the other. Even ours, we have a gym in the garage. So one of the housemates is like, hey, can my buddy come work out? I promise I'll disinfect, wipe everything down. He's not coming into the house. It's just in the garage in the gym. And yeah, one housemate was like, you know what? I don't feel comfortable with that. So, and if not everybody's in agreement, then it doesn't happen. So it didn't happen. But again, I mean, every community I've talked to, that's been the thing, either overreacting, underreacting. So it's hard to make everybody happy in a time of a pandemic, right?
Oh, for sure, for sure. But yeah, I think on the other side of this, the market for co-living is going to be exponentially bigger. People, you know, there's always a backlash to whatever is going on. We're seeing it. Okay, people have been cooped up now. Crazy people or not. I don't want to call them crazy, but people are protesting and breaking the rules and saying, "Hey, we want to be out." And I know that after being cooped up here for a month now or close to it. I could really use some in-person community as well. So,
what, Zoom isn't enough? Video chat isn't enough?
It's great. And so, that's how we've been, connecting the network of locations each week. A different one will do a live stream concert to the other one. And, normally in-person stuff. So.
That's super cool. And then, so again, Jeremiah, I'm so glad you went deep into how Upstart, again, a community of your size with that many locations is handling this pandemic. I know, people from around the world are going to see or listen to this interview. So I appreciate you being so transparent, because everybody's curious, like how is everybody doing? How are they handling it? With Agile medical systems, is there any more, I know you guys are like fast tracking everything. Is there anything else you want to say about it? I definitely, wanted to tackle both conversations with you.
Yeah. So, again, this is, launching this new company, there's sort of rare moments in your life where you feel like all of your life experiences, sort of led to this moment. And, if a year ago you would have said medical device company, I say you're insane. But I was a hobbyist builder and inventor in my whole life. And, just through the process of, just building, prototyping, manufacturing, 5 generations of these, sleeping pods, and then, seeing a capacity crisis in hospitals, they're just like that. You're an entrepreneur, you know what it's like. You get that calling, you can't sleep. You're like, this is what I need to do. And, maybe that's just prevent me from going stir crazy during the pandemic. But, within weeks, I expect, we're going to be manufacturing thousands of these units, and, sending them across the country to, both protect the sick, and protect, the vulnerable yet healthy homeless population. I think we always talked about, how, sleeping pods could help the homeless, in the past, but there was just always so much, red tape and bureaucracy, and just this, old way of thinking, that prevented the conversation from ever significantly progressing. And in terms of there's plenty of Japanese sleeping pods and everything like that, but we the reason why we always manufactured our own pods is because there was nothing for co-living. Everything was designed for 1 night, 2 night, a week at maximum business travelers with a backpack or a suitcase. And so we had to redesign it with the idea that you're actually going to live in this thing for 6 months or longer. So it needs to store all of your things. And this latest generation and revision with the medical and the homeless, it has just been the best thing we've built yet. We're in there's sort of three sales cycles that we're looking at for this new company and product. One is immediately, what can we do today to increase healthcare capacity in the U.S. and the world with sort of I don't want to call it a minimum viable product, because I think it's awesome. A lot of development has gone into it, but it's a negative pressure unit with comfort items. But it's not ultimately a lot of the IP that we put into this is for a post-pandemic world version, which has all the built-in medical equipment, oxygen, digital monitors, ventilators, IV, two-way video communication. And my expectation is that during the pandemic and immediately post, I'll run this company, and then we'll likely bring in a professional CEO with medical experience to just transition this into the call it the high-end Mercedes post-pandemic medical pod, which ultimately the opportunity there is just really exciting, because yes, of course, it's the prospect of saving lives and negative pressure today in response to COVID is great. Yet the medical system is arguably broken in a number of ways, and I believe that there's a way that we take what we know about co-living and apply that to the medical world. It's really not that crazy. The same reason that people get, call it, the real estate developers get excited about, rent arbitrage, that word in our business, whether it's our pods or this or that, it's, okay, you take, a certain amount of square footage, you subdivide it, and it's a double bottom line value. You are able to charge your customer less and generate more revenue per square foot for your landlord. And so wonderful. Everybody wins with co-living. But when you look at the hospitals, that's very expensive real estate. It's what, $2,500 a night to spend the night in the hospital, and you're probably even sharing a room with a curtain in between you and everything like that. But, if we can, really create these, high-end, safe, medical pods, and you are a 19-year-old with questionable insurance and you get hit by a car on your bike and you go into the hospital and you have two options. It's, hey, it's going to be $2,500 a night, and these bills are going to rack up, and you're probably going to go to collections, or it's $500 a night, and you can, be in this medical pod, and all day long, I would take the medical pod, and again, it's a double win, and the hospital can have a greater efficiency with both their staff and generate more revenue and charge significantly less to their customer. And what the regulatory environment looks like in a post-pandemic world, I don't know, but I do expect that the changes in views on things, which is because of the pandemic, now we see an opportunity in homeless for pods because all the regulatory and once that is used during the pandemic, and seeing that actually, this is way more humane than a cot on the ground in a garbage can. And, this idea, well, wait, you're sticking people in pods or these coffins, what, there's just some exposure that needs to happen to the public. And, we've done that with co-living. Everyone said we're in 2016, we're crazy. Young people would never want to do that. Now we have competitors all over the place, coming in, copying the model. And so, yeah, I believe that we can do that to, the medical world as well. I think there's, a huge international opportunity. Any, developing country where there's consistently pressure on the medical system and you need to increase capacity. And so yeah, I'm very, very excited about, what we're doing. It's opened up, amazing conversations, in only 3.5 weeks, from, Gavin Newsom to Garcetti to, Jared Kushner now to the, Chan Zuckerberg Foundation. So, I really think that, in the coming weeks, once we get these, manufactured, we're going to see a lot of them out in the world. So I'm very excited.
Yes. And again, so that's a perfect, we'll wrap up the interview, and again, I knew we would talk for a while, so an hour-long interview. But yeah, again, I'm just so impressed and so excited for you. You didn't go, and I know you had a lot of chaos happening. That's a lot of people to deal with at Upstart, but instead of scarcity mindset or negative or freaking out or hiding under the covers, you were like, how can we solve this massive problem with COVID-19, especially in Los Angeles? It was getting scary there for a bit. I know California is doing really well. I'm proud of our state. I'm so proud of our state for kind of slowing down that curve. But this might not be, like, I hate to say it, but knock on wood, this might not be the only pandemic we see in our lifetime. And how are we prepared if it happens again? And I think what you're doing is perfect.
Oh yeah. So a really interesting thing right now, for example, yes, this is very relevant to, COVID, but, we've been talking to nursing home operators right now that, see this, and they're, freaked out because their population is the most vulnerable to this. They have no way of isolating them. They're paying their staff double, to just treat them. And so, they've seen the pod, they want it for this, but, flu is the biggest killer of, the elderly. And they say, we want these in our units. And so, now they're going to the Medicaid, Medicare, I forget which one, trying to demand and to get them to compensate, because they see this as, well, wait a second, now when we have someone with the flu in our facility, we can, quarantine them here, and, prevent the spread. And so it's exciting. It's definitely, again, medical devices, co-living, on the surface, very different, but really, honestly, just based on the same principles of, how do we more efficiently use space, and how do we, care for members, our customers. You know, that and it's really exciting. So
it's going to be the best pivot I've ever seen in the business history. I love that. Awesome. Well, Jeremiah, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it. We'll have your contact information in the show notes if anybody's intrigued and wants to help or has the resources. But yeah, we will be watching and cheering you on for sure.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you want to learn more about co-living, you could check out my book on Amazon, The Co-Living Code. And of course, if you're looking for the perfect software to power your co-living concept, check out kindred.io, KNDRD.io. Thanks. And a quick thank you to SPX Agency for all of the graphics, animation, and design on our YouTube channel.